Hello, I'm Jon Lenz. Welcome to another episode of our Green Velvet Chats, where we meet with a variety of business leaders to discuss only the most important things happening in marketing, business, and tech. I'm thrilled to be joined today with the venerable Todd Allard. Todd, thank you for being here.
Glad to be here.
Well, I'm a huge fan and have the full scoop of your background and expertise. Could you start by just telling a little bit about yourself and kind of how we got to here today?
Sure. So I currently am a chief marketing officer and have been at 4 different organizations. I started with Zenith Education Group, moved to LL Flooring, Northern Tool and Equipment, and then most recently was with a fintech startup in New York City called PrizeOut. Prior to that, I spent the first half of my career in the advertising agency world and worked with 4 different agencies there. So I think there's a thing there with 4, but worked at 2 agencies in Chicago and then moved here and spent time with Kimmel, Methuen, and Fallon.
Those are some solid names.
Oh yeah, they were great experiences for sure.
So you've had a rich and diverse career spanning multiple industries. Help us understand like some of the connective threads or key principles with how you go about leading marketing teams today.
I worked my way through, I think, some early stage challenges around brands that were really trying to introduce themselves as a new player. In this case, it was a brand that we had at Best Buy called Magnolia, and really developed a playbook out of our approach to that brand, which was to really understand at the time who were the best customers of that high-end kind of science brand, if you will, within Best Buy, and what was it about the experience of Magnolia that really drew that customer to want to use that and to come back kind of time and time again. So really getting good at mining deep customer insights and really defining the mindset of a customer and how that helps explain who they are and what they do, to then lead to an overall promise that the brand can articulate with the help of that customer in a kind of a co-created research fashion, and then a list of value propositions that become proof points for that promise. And that really then shapes both the narrative and the story that we want to tell as marketers, but it also often shapes the end-to-end experience that customers have with that particular, in many cases it's been a retailer. And so we have used that strategy as a way to help our organization define how we're going to win and give everybody an opportunity to participate in that.
I like how you mentioned co-creating with that core customer at the center. In your LinkedIn profile, you mentioned breakthrough customer engagement. Can you expand on what that looks like in practice and how you measure the efficacy of breakthrough customer engagement?
Yeah, that comes from big ideas. And I've been fortunate to work with some of the best partners in the industry to be able to take that brand promise and the insights that created it and translate that with partners to really big ideas for brands. And then that becomes the basis for the narrative and the story that we're telling. And and a couple of the brands that I have worked for have gone up against some really big, deep-pocketed competitors. Yeah. And so really the only way that we could break through was to have a better idea, was to kind of outsmart instead of outspend. And fortunately, we've had some really great partners in the past that have helped us craft that big idea. So it's really first and foremost differentiation in the strategy, but then it's a big idea that helps us break through. And that big idea, it's big enough that it can go through all of our different touch points to the customer and make sense no matter where we're leveraging that idea to explain who we are.
There's a parallel there that we work with a lot of mid-market or upper mid-market clients that run into a similar situation where we have a farm and fleet client that goes up against Grainger.
Yeah.
Right? And we're always talking about finding the creative white space that maybe is below that where they're going to play that first search engine result. Like, where's the creative white space that we can engage customers and like profitably run a campaign against the Yankees of the world, right?
Yeah.
Walk us through your approach to taking those insights and really developing and implementing an omni-channel strategy.
Yeah, I think, again, there's learning along the way that really helps us understand who our unique customer is. And it really is that customer that wants what we do best and isn't necessarily interested in what others have to offer in the category, because a lot of times through the process of creating that strategy, we're really learning how to take what has been good about our experience to this point, because they've been using us as a place to shop, or they're taking things that don't exist in the category that they want, things that they've experienced maybe in other categories, and they're putting those two things together and saying, this is what we want. And so we're taking that and we're marketing that to those that have the mindset and the want of that experience. So it may not be something that the Yankees are even interested in from a white space perspective. It may be uniquely a group of customers that really only want what we would do best. And we're able to go and market to them. And so we take that same mindset, which is often MRI defined, and we're able to map that back from a media perspective to both figure out the channels where to reach that customer, but also the messaging to put into those channels. And that's a lot of, test and learn and repeat in terms of making sure that we have the right elements of messaging to break through. And that's just an iterative process with that customer. But
I really like how you mentioned the iteration around it, because so often I feel like there's this inertia to invest in the insights and the customer research on the front end of a plan, and then suddenly that budget line item evaporates as you're going through implementation. And because what we do digitally is so data driven, we want those insights and can iterate quickly. So it's making sure that's not lost, and having a planned cadence of specifically what's your focus and what are we trying to test on is important. How do you approach the integration of digital and analog channels or online and offline events as part of that strategy?
I've been fortunate to work with a really great partner that I have hired now at a couple of different stops, who has helped build a model. It's a combination of multi-touch attribution and media mix model, and we put those two things together so that we understand both how are all of the channels working together, because it's never just one that you can attribute a customer's decision to buy from. And oftentimes it's moving those levers and testing and trying analog versus digital, television versus CTV, digital radio versus analog, and really trying to refine both what you're using, what you're saying in those channels, and how much you're spending. That's the big one, is how are we getting most efficient with the dollars that we're spending across the cadence of channels that we're using, and that we're constantly adjusting. We had a meeting with the partner that helped us build this model literally every week, where we were looking at data and understanding how the brand was performing that week relative to the traffic that we were seeing coming in to the stores in this case, and then what we were seeing from a conversion perspective, because you want the right customers coming in, not just any customer. You ideally want to pre-qualify the best customer that's coming in that will convert at a higher level. So
yes, we have that similarity with an e-commerce client that we support, where where average order value is a big indicator. We could drive more traffic, but it wouldn't be the core customer, and it would bring the average order value down. They're really looking for B2B industrial upfitters that are going to place orders with 1,000 widgets versus someone working on their Mustang in the garage that's going to order 1 or 2. So those metrics can always balance each other out. Speaking of balancing, walk us through how you balance the data-driven decision-making with creative marketing initiatives in the leadership role.
Sure. Well, the data and the insights up front are what help us understand, again, the overall mindset of the customer, and then the overall translation of that to a differentiated strategy. the decisions around creativity are our best assessment of how well we're capturing what that promise is to the customer and how well we're articulating it. And we don't always hit the mark, obviously, right away. Sometimes it takes 3 or 4 campaigns or tries to really hit the mark. But then the data on the back end is what is telling us whether or not we are performing. And that's both the digital data of what we're seeing in terms of flow coming in from search and other channels, as well as footsteps into the box. What are we seeing from customers coming into the store, and how many of those are converting? And then later, we're looking at data to see, okay, how many of those users have come back time and time again? How are we developing the kind of loyal customer that ultimately is our goal to have the customer be the one that is advocating for us, so that we can actually spend less and the customer can do the heavy lifting for us.
That whole take reminds me of a quote I am probably going to butcher, but it was, an opinion without data is just feelings, right? That's just a feeling. But if you can apply data and turn it into information and illustrate trends, you can make an informed opinion and still, I like how you spoke to that, like still balance the creativity and know that this is a test. But this is what we're basing the test on, and this is what we're hoping to learn.
I think marketing has gone a little bit askew in that it has become perhaps too data driven. That because with performance media we can see exactly what we're getting in the moment and how well it's performing, we're missing some opportunities, I think, to really ultimately see and feed the creative side that drives an overall sense of why from a customer connection perspective. And those are things that often take more time to seed and build than you're going to see immediately.
So I'm queuing you up. So what's your take on, well, you're speaking to it, brand versus performance, and how do you balance those often conflicting?
Sales overnight, brand over time.
Okay.
You're investing immediately in the sales that you're trying to drive, and you have to drive sales as a marketer or you're out of work. But at the same time, you're also investing in a brand and a brand idea that further differentiates you from everybody else and creates that emotional connection to the customer that is ultimately not broken by somebody else's sale. I mean, a lot of us sell the same things, and unless there's you're my preferred retailer, from an emotional perspective, it's easy to lose for somebody else's sale. But if you've got that kind of emotional bond with a customer, it's much better to be able to hang on to them over time. And again, that's the kind of customer that's going to advocate on our brand behalf and recommend us to other people.
Let's forecast forward. Looking ahead, what are some key challenges or trends that marketing and business leaders alike need to be aware of, and how do you advise navigating some of those?
Well, you can't have a podcast or conversation or anything without talking about AI, and everybody does, so I'll go there as well. I have maybe a slightly different perspective on what I'm seeing from AI, and don't get me wrong, it's an incredible engine to harvest an incredible amount of data and information and ideas and things that are pre-existing. But I think the watch out for me is as everybody comes to the same source for the same thinking or the same solutions, it's going to have the effect of bringing everybody to the center, and it's going to bring in, I think it's going to usher in a whole new era of creativity. I think things have gotten a little less creative. I mean, think about things in the creative space now and how many things you actually think about or talk about versus 5-10 years ago, where you had campaigns that were unique and original, and you just don't see a lot of that today. But I think AI is going to have the effect of, because it tends to be the place that everybody goes now for the same thinking, it's going to put a new premium on creativity. And so I would say you've got to balance, like everybody else has has noticed AI is going to be a helpful tool, but it's not going to be the answer. We're not going to clean out our entire marketing team and use AI as the solution. We're going to add that as a tool to people that use that engine to get smarter or to go faster, particularly on things that are pedestrian in terms of just the stuff you have to think through and crank out. But the original creativity, I think, will really accelerate in the next 5 years.
I hope that's a contrarian take. If you agree or disagree, we'd love to know in the comments. Agreeing with your, or parallel, maybe more adjacent to your contrarian take, is I think that where I am beginning to see greater opportunity for AI isn't just like figuring out how to adopt it uniformly across an organization. That's not happening. But it's the startups and the new tools and technology that serves a niche, and they have 20% of what they've built is super specific to that niche, and then it's using an open AI backend, or it's using the AI to leverage and harness that. At the manufacturing technology trade show I went to last week, that was beginning to be on display of like, hey, here's how we can take all of your production line data, bring it up into the cloud, and leverage that for insights. Like, that was a specific AI application.
But that's your data, so right? It's not out there for everybody else to use, but it puts your data in. It's sort of connected to everything else that you can see, and then you can harvest insights from that. That's great.
Yeah,
but nobody else can. So that's good.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's probably a play. I'm thinking of one specific exhibit I played to where, yes, it's their data, it's the client's data, but there's probably a play on the back end to have kind of a benchmark group anonymized of all their clients and kind of developing more leadership that way. But the initial product was just to help leverage all that production line data that currently isn't stitched together in any way, shape, or form.
I wonder what that means, or what it will mean from a customer data perspective in a retail setting. So much of what and this gets around the Google cookie problem, where we have such a richness of data in retail, particularly when you have a loyalty program, because people just give you whatever you want so that they can derive the benefit of what you're promising from the loyalty program, free shipping or whatever. And they're now taking all of that data, living and breathing day to day, and putting that in an engine that can compare, and draw insights versus competitors or other kinds of experiences that they might have, or helping you find partnerships or things like that.
One of the things that we are doing and expanding on is building lookalike audiences and using across platforms. Think Google, Meta, Reddit, like all those different parameters, and being able to create a truly custom audience with parameters across platforms, and then like leveraging AI to inform that audience design. I think that's another useful application that is more near term and able to be implemented more quickly.
The richness of being able to define an audience and then very specifically find them from a media perspective is golden. And that eliminates, I think, a lot of waste and allows you to do a few more rifle shots than shotguns. And I would assume the same kind of data also yields the richness of here's what would be most compelling to that audience, and a way to test and try that before you even put it out into the marketplace. I mean, some of the work that I've been engaged with has taken a profile of a customer from a mindset perspective, recreated that within like a ChatGPT kind of environment, and then literally created a town hall where you could have conversations with things that have been created in AI that have that mindset. It's pretty cool.
I also should qualify, because I feel like there's going to be someone in the comments. What I described is primarily machine learning, then it would get to AI. Predictive modeling, machine learning, then it would get to AI. Just for the
technical.
Todd, thank you for sitting down and for our conversation. This has been just full of knowledge. I so appreciate you taking the time. Where can people find you or follow you or interact with you? What's going on?
Yeah, I live in the Twin Cities, and certainly it can be found on LinkedIn, but I've been very active of late on a couple of boards. One is the Minnesota Autism Center, and the other is the Friends of the Minnesota Orchestra. So I'm having fun with the nonprofit board space as I'm looking for my next adventure.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of our Green Velvet Chats. We'll see you again soon.